How do babies actually learn to speak with words? When they're listening to everyone talking around them, how do they pick out which words to begin speaking? Doesn't it all sound pretty much like a jumble of sounds to them? I'm Tara Tuck, and I help parents, preschool teachers, and all of you who care for young children to learn everything you need to know about speech and language, the most important part of child development. In this video, I'm going to tell you how your baby is figuring all this out and how it all depends on how you communicate with your baby. And at the end, I'm going to give you lots of things you can do to make this fun for both you and your little one. I'm a speech and language pathologist and the author of The Joy of Language, the Guide to Language and Learning for Parents and Caregivers. I've given you that link below. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this and visit my website. As I explained in my last video, your baby has to begin to master the sounds of speech in preparation for using real words. But here comes the fun part, when you can really see growth. What will his first words be? How quickly will she learn new words and be able to tell you what she wants, what she sees, how she feels? When will you actually be able to have a conversation with him? Just think of all the language a baby is hearing each day. It's certainly not unusual for a mother and father to be talking to each other while their son is trying to get their attention and their daughter is talking on the phone while the TV is on in the background. So babies hear people talking all the time. Can you imagine what this sounds like to a baby? How does a baby pick out individual words from all this commotion going on? Well, luckily, babies are born biologically ready to learn language by looking for regularities in the patterns of language they hear around them. They're born wanting to hear language and wanting to learn how to use it themselves. So they tune into conversations around them. They discover what language sounds like, and they listen to it very carefully. They turn their heads toward voices. In fact, and this is pretty remarkable, they even know when people are using the correct prosody, the stresses and intonation patterns of their language. Your baby doesn't understand what the sentences mean, of course, but he knows how language sounds. So your baby's attention to prosody and imitation of how language sounds precedes understanding by quite a few months. Babies first hear sentences as strings of intoned sounds, not as individual words. So a baby might hear, "Oh my goodness, you really like those carrots today," not understanding the individual words, "Oh my goodness, you really like those carrots today." But after hearing carrots over and over while he's being fed carrots, he'll really be able to separate that set of sounds from the rest of the sounds, and he'll start to add meaning to it. Infants actually begin learning vocabulary as early as 6 months of age, when they begin to look at objects named by caregivers, even though they usually don't speak their first word until around their first birthday. You'll be able to tell when your baby is able to understand the meaning of a word, even when it's spoken as part of a phrase. You'll see that spark of recognition. At 8 or 9 months, we can see that babies don't just attend to words, but they actually intend to communicate. They begin to understand that their actions are being followed by being given what they want. It's a cause and effect relationship. So your baby will look at you, touch you, make some sounds while pointing to an object like a cookie, or to tell you to continue playing a game like tickle or knee bounce, something like that. Interestingly though, at this age, the baby initiates the pointing. Babies at this age don't look at something you're pointing at. They're more likely to look at your finger than at the object. And they don't usually look at the object you're pointing to until the end of the first year, like just around the time of their first word. When learning language or anything else, babies' brains are constantly categorizing things into important and unimportant. The names of things that are important, like mommy, daddy, kitty, juice, and events that make a difference to the baby, like eating, bath time, nap time, riding in the car. So when you emphasize important words to your baby, watch for a smile or a head turn or any other sign that the baby knows what you're talking about. Now, as far as your baby's first words, they'll probably be mama or dada. Remember that babies are producing the and the d sound along with vowels while babbling. So it's inevitable that mama or dada will be produced. And if mama or dada are there to hear it, and then they get excited and they repeat it to the baby, it's likely to become a favorite word and probably the first word, the one you've really been waiting for. Other first words will be words that have most meaning to your baby, nouns and verbs, and words needed to express himself like no, or more, or bye-bye, or up. He'll also use words that contain the sounds that he finds easiest to produce, and this varies from child to child. So if he finds it more difficult to produce the sound than the d sound constantly, he'll probably say dada more times than he'll exclaim mama. Babies just need practice with all of this. As I said, babies first understand words that they hear often and that are important to them, like cup, doggy, car, or hat. They enjoy listening to stories that repeat words over and over, and they begin to recognize them as old friends. Eventually, they understand the meanings of these words, and then they begin to use them themselves. Babies at 6 or 7 months seem to know their own name, but even with their own name, it's unclear whether they just recognize this string of sounds as being familiar, or if they actually know that these sounds refer specifically to them. But they usually do look at the person who's saying their name. Now, each baby also has a preferred type of expression. Some babies are more expressive of their wants and needs, so they use words like no and more pretty often. But others enjoy labeling people and objects, such as juice, kiki, doggy. You'll get to know your child's style quickly by just observing. Then you can use these types of words with your child to increase her vocabulary more quickly. Of course, your child will also be learning words and word combinations of all types as soon as she needs them. Toddlers also overgeneralize words they use. They might use the word dog to mean all animals, or ball to mean everything that's round. It makes sense for them to use a word that's at least close to what they want to say. This is another remarkable example of how a baby's brain works and how she's learning. She's able to categorize objects and actions at a very early age. And then she's able to search her memory for a word that belongs in that category. Of course, when baby calls a cow a dog, mommy will probably say very gently, "No, Sally, that's a cow." But eventually she'll learn that it's a cow. For now on, she's showing you how smart she really is. She knows it's an animal with 4 legs. Now, a lot of parents and caregivers wonder if teaching a baby sign language is a good idea. Will it keep the baby from learning to actually talk? Well, there are many good books about baby signs. Babies have very strong needs to communicate, and there are real advantages to teaching babies to sign. Babies who sign are often less frustrated. They're able to communicate their needs. They develop more advanced oral language skills, and even some of them do better on intelligence tests. Many parents have reported that their babies enjoyed signing and that the baby's language developed well. Signs that you might use with your baby will look much more like what they stand for than are the signs of American Sign Language, or ASL, and they're easier for babies to sign. Of course, you can make up your own signs with your baby as long as you both know what they mean. The object is to give your baby a way to communicate with you even before she can talk. So many language development experts believe that signing leads to early talking because parents and caregivers who gesture with babies are more responsive to their nonverbal cues. So yeah, signing is a great way to communicate with your baby. Just make sure always to pair it with saying the words, and your baby will start to do the same thing. So your baby's first words will begin when he's between 9 and 12 months old. And before your baby is 2 years old, he'll have a vocabulary of about 50 words and will begin combining them into 2-word phrases. Then, after he's using between 50 and 100 words, his vocabulary will develop in leaps and bounds. And at age 4, he should have a vocabulary of about 5,000 words. That's a lot. Of course, some children acquire vocabulary at a much faster rate than other children. And this is usually a result of hearing a variety of words at home or in childcare and having the opportunity for plenty of practice. So increasing the diversity of words used with your child and also the gestures that are used with those new words are both really important components of vocabulary development. And don't be afraid to use big words at times with your child. She can handle it. I'll talk more about that in my video about vocabulary development. So, what can you do to help this along? Well, you can chat with your baby about people, objects, events in your home, and during outside activities. Chat with him as if he's interested in everything, because actually he is. And don't force her first words, but let them be the words she wants to say. After she starts naming things, though, ask her to tell you rather than signing or pointing. Respond positively to each new word he adds to his vocabulary. Make sure he knows that you're happy when he uses his words. Name everyday household objects. Once she hears the names of things a number of times, she'll get it. Name body parts and make a game of it. Can you wiggle your fingers? What am I covering up? Also, you can give simple third-party instructions like give the spoon to Teddy. So you'll know that he understands both spoon and Teddy and give. So emphasize the important words you want him to learn. Give instructions using prepositions. Put the box under the table. Put Teddy on the couch next to Sarah. Which toy is between the truck and the boat? So you should stress important words in your sentences, like prepositions, like I just mentioned. I'm putting the dish on the table. Let's put the broom in the closet. Give your toddler choices so he can practice naming what he wants. Do you want orange juice or apple juice? And have him tell you. When looking at picture books together, if the real object is in the room, point to it along with the picture of it. Make the words in the book real to your child. Discuss his artwork with him. Really listen to his descriptions and ask some questions about it. So he'll need to say more and he'll use more words. Make up songs about daily tasks while doing them using the word that describes what you're doing. Even ask her things in your song so she has to sing you the answers with the right words. Also, Talk With Me Baby is a public campaign initiated in Atlanta, and it includes a mobile app that provides tips and reminds parents to talk to their babies throughout the week. So I've given you that in the link below. Now, please write to me in the comments below. Ask me questions, give me suggestions. Also, please subscribe to my channel and visit my website, thejoyoflanguage.com. And tell your friends, relatives, preschool teachers, babysitters about my book that explains it all, and of course about my videos. And I'll see you in the next one.